today's celebration a reality. My name is Bob Wasserbach. I'm the board president of Faithful Friends Animal Society. So I stood on this ground. Thank you. I stood on this ground, I think it was somewhere over there, when we had the groundbreaking event for the new shelter in October 2021. It was a wet, drizzly, muddy day. We had such a nice day today. It was tough to picture then what we have before us now. A state-of-the-art shelter for our animal residents, our employees, our volunteers, and our guests. I'm so proud of everybody that helped get us here today. I'd like to share a few quotes that talk about the relationship between humans and animals. Anatole France, a famous French poet, said, "Until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened." I believe that's definitely true. Karen Davidson, an author, "Saving one dog or cat will not change the world, but surely for that one dog or cat, the world will change forever." And we have changed the world for many animals over the years. And then Mahatma Gandhi, "The greatness of a nation and its world progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated." Well, Mahatma Gandhi, I think today's, looking at the shelter today, I think this is a testament to how well Faithful Friends treats its animals. Faithful Friends is all about the human-animal connection, and we live and breathe it every single day. And I know that each of you has experienced that human-animal bond during your lives. Before I introduce Sharon Struthers, who our building is named after, I'd like to recognize and thank a few individuals. I'd like to recognize certain public officials, Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall Long, who's represented by Liz Richards, State Senator Marie Pinckney, State Senator Laura Sturgeon, State Senator David Sokola, and some of these people may not be here, but they had responded that they were going to attend on the attendee list. State Representative Melissa Minor Brown, I know she's here. State Representative Deborah Heffernan. State Representative Kim Williams, I know she's here. And Kim and Jack are both on the board of Humane Animal Partners. Newcastle County Executive Matt Meyer, who's going to be one of our speakers today. County Council President Karen Hartley Nagel. And by the way, Karen, a few minutes ago, brought me a resolution from County Council. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll read the title. Honoring Faithful Friends Animal Society for its dedication to animal welfare and celebrating the grand opening of its headquarters in Newcastle. I'm going to put this on the counter on the front desk when you walk in if anybody wants to read the whole resolution. So thank you, Karen. I'd like to recognize former county executive and former county council president Paul Clark. Paul? Newcastle County Councilman Brandon Toole, who's represented by Stacy Napper, his legislative aide today. Although not public officials, there's a few other people I'd like to recognize that are here today. Patrick Carroll and Ann Kavanaugh from Humane Animal Partners. John Carano from First State Animal Center. Joanna Miller and Mark Tobin from the State Office of Animal Welfare. Carrie Casey and Nicole Waters from the county's Department of Community Services. And if there's any other public officials here who I did not recognize, I apologize, but I went by the attendee list and who responded. I'd like to thank a few other people for getting us where we are today with the new shelter. I'd like to thank the state of Delaware and the Colonial School District for gifting this land to us. And I'd also like to thank the state of Delaware and the state legislators for providing funding to us through their annual bond bills. I'd like to thank former State Senator David McBride, Deputy Controller General Bert Scaletti, and our pro bono attorney Sean Tucker for working on the state bill which enabled us to get this land. I'd like to thank Artisans Bank. I'd like to thank Artisans Bank for providing us with financing. I believe a few representatives from Artisans are here today. I'd like to thank the volunteer liaisons who work as a go-between between Faithful Friends and Bancroft Construction during the building construction. And they are Jill Cantera, Shaw Taylor, Tom Dilley, and Renee Calloway. I'd also like to thank Gina Sikora for her volunteer interior design work. And thanks so much to the Faithful Friends leadership team that works with Bancroft and the volunteer liaisons on the building of the shelter. And thanks to everybody here who donated to the capital campaign in one way or another. And thanks to all Faithful Friends, employees, and volunteers who work hard to save animals' lives every single day. So, as I said, the new building is named the Sharon Struthers Animal Adoption and Community Center. Sharon and her husband Rick Struthers gave a very generous gift to have the building named after Sharon Struthers. We are so proud to have the building named after her, as she has done so much for Faithful Friends and for the animals of Delaware. Sharon joined our board of directors in 2012, and she's been the board vice president for most of that time. She's a very valuable board member for Faithful Friends. She's also been a very valuable board member for other nonprofit organizations. After she retired from MBNA, or Bank of America, she sort of dedicated herself to the nonprofit sector. Sharon and her husband Rick have been major donors to Faithful Friends, both for operations and for the capital campaign. Please welcome Sharon Struthers.
Thank you, Rob. And I want to thank everybody for coming out today to celebrate this project that's been in the works for a very long time. As Bob said, I'm Sharon Struthers, and I'm the Vice President of the Faithful Friends Board. I grew up in Delaware. I've been here since I was 3 years old, and I consider Delaware my home. I met Jane back in 2010. At the time, my 16-year-old daughter wanted to volunteer here to walk dogs. So I came down with her, and that's when I met Jane. And even then, Jane was talking about a new facility. So that's how long this has been in the works. I've been involved with a lot of nonprofits in Delaware. I get involved in mostly the fundraising side of it. I've been doing it for over 20 years now. And I like to get involved with organizations that are making a difference. And I got involved with Faithful Friends because Faithful Friends is definitely making a difference for the homeless pets in Delaware. I'm passionate about animals, and that's why I got involved with Faithful Friends. I realized that they were really being the voice for the homeless animals, which I thought was very unique and very courageous. Jane, over 20 years ago, brought the no-kill philosophy here to Delaware. Believe me, it was not easy to incorporate the no-kill philosophy, but through perseverance, we were able to take the 90% kill rate to a 90% save rate. So I think that's wonderful. There is a plaque inside near the desk, the front desk, and it is to recognize Jane for all the years and all the effort that she has put in to making this a no-kill state. I said I was passionate about animals, and I have rescued 3 dogs from here. So, and they're all wonderful. They're all very wonderful. So when Jane was talking about building a new building, I had 20 years experience in fundraising and capital campaigns. So I understood how a purpose-built building would be able to increase the life saving that we're doing. And I think it would also greatly improve the environment, and not only for the animals, but also for all of the staff, the volunteers, the visitors, kind of everybody. So that's why I got passionate about this project. We kicked off the project back in May of 2017. Unfortunately, there was a pandemic. So that actually added almost 2 years to our project, with the fundraising, with the building. But here we are 6 years later, and we are celebrating this absolutely beautiful building that's behind me. As Bob mentioned, there were a lot of people involved in this project. There are so many people involved that we couldn't name everybody. But I do want to take this time to recognize Bob Wasserbach. He has been our board president through this whole process. And it was his perseverance, his calmness, his thoughtfulness, his business ethics that really kind of got us here. So I want to take this moment to say thank you, Bob, for being our fearless leader. And now the best part. I want to thank my husband, Rick. It was his idea to make the donation so that we could name the building in my name. So this is all because of him. As I said, I have spent many years working in the nonprofit world, and I've had quite a few projects that taken a lot of time as a volunteer, and he has put up with me that whole time. He has supported me. And this, I have to say, was probably one of the biggest projects I've ever done. And he supported me the whole way through this, through tears and whatever else there was. And then on top of that, he has made this donation so that the building can be named after me. So I thank you very much, and I love you, dear. And I'm so proud to be part of this passionate group of people, between the donors, the employees, the staff, the volunteers. I'm just so glad to be part of this organization that is compassionate and has passion for the animals. It's just so great feeling to be involved with all these people that love these animals and want to give homeless animals a second chance. So I just am so proud to be part of this whole organization. And again, I want to thank my husband for making the donation to name the building. And I also want to thank all of you who believed in our mission and believed in the possibility that we could build this beautiful building. Thank you.
Okay, before I get restarted, I was informed that I missed, when I was recognizing the public officials, that I missed one of them. It's a very important name to us, and I apologize. I'd like to recognize Jack Walsh, State Senator Jack Walsh. State Senator Jack Walsh and State Representative Kim Williams, who are sitting next to each other. They're on the board of Humane Animal Partners, which was formed by the merger of Delaware SPCA and the Delaware Humane Association. And Jack and Kim have been big supporters of Faithful Friends also. So thank you. I'd like to recognize our leadership campaign donors, the top donors other than the Struthers. Again, the state of Delaware. I'd like to thank Charles Robertson in memory of Barbara Paul Robertson. I'd like to thank the Wu family. I'd like to thank an anonymous donor, whoever he or she is, in memory of all the calls and tales that came before. I'd like to thank the Ellis and Rose McDonald Foundation. I'd like to thank the Longwood Foundation. I'd like to thank Paul and Linda McConnell. I'd like to thank Barry Baker from Adel Construction. I'd like to thank the Crystal Trust Foundation. I'd like to thank Todd and Sean Babel Montgomery of Integrity Staffing Solutions. I'd like to thank Nancy Frederick. And I'd like to thank Rebecca Frederick and Trina Terzin. And lastly, I'd like to thank Tom and Diane Wren. I'd next like to introduce our Newcastle County Executive, Matt Meyer. Matt is currently in his second term as a county executive and has announced plans to run for governor in 2024. He's an animal lover and a big supporter of Faithful Friends. Matt's a graduate of Brown University and University of Michigan Law School. Prior to becoming county executive, he worked as a math teacher, a diplomat in Iraq, an economic advisor to Delaware Governor Jack Markell, and started 2 successful businesses. He also worked as an attorney at the New York law firm of Simpson Thacker, at the Potomac Law Group, and at the Community Legal Aid Society. Please welcome Matt Meyer.
Thank you so much, Bob. Good morning. What a beautiful day to sit out on the patio, isn't it? I got a tour probably a few months into construction, and I walked out. I said, I got to call my handyman. I need a patio in my house. So I think there are going to be quite a few people trying to replicate some of the features here. Let's give a big round of applause. Where are the Bancroft construction guys? Guys and gals, I should say. Where's the interior designer who designed this beautiful facility? You know, this is absolutely extraordinary. County Executive Paul Clark, who is here, I think he's the one who taught me shortly after I was elected in 2016 that my job as county executive and council president, our job in county government is basically 2 things. We got to do public safety, police, paramedics, 911, fire, and we got to do dirt. Dirt, land use. And so when you go around doing dirt all the time, when you cut ribbons, when you break ground, you start getting philosophical about it. And you start to understand that the way we treat our land and the decisions we make about the buildings we build are really a reflection of us, of who we are as people, and what our values are. And that's really what makes today particularly special. I don't know how you cannot look at this building and get a little lump in your throat, get a little tear in your eye, knowing that we did this behind Jane's vision and execution, behind the contributions, serious financial contribution, millions of dollars from so many of you here, both private and of course state and county public. And also the dedication of time. So many who are here, I know, and many hundreds, maybe even thousands who are not here, who dedicated their time simply to make sure on a policy level that this is a no-kill state and a no-kill community, and also on a personal level, to take a single animal and make sure it's treated with dignity and respect. Carrie Casey and Nicole Waters were mentioned. They're here. One thing they do is they created and operate the Hope Center, which now we're lucky. It's a lot closer than Germain Drive here. It's right down the street. And one thing I've learned since we created the Hope Center in December of 2020, and I've learned through our partnership with Faithful Friends, is that animal health and taking care of homeless animals is also human health. It's also human health. One thing unusual that the Hope Center does, and the Hope Center is a hotel we acquired 2.5 years ago to house individuals experiencing homelessness across our community. One thing extraordinary about that facility that Carrie and Nicole were adamant about is that we let individuals bring their pets. That pets are essential to human mental health, sometimes physical health. Of course, doing that, saying that is not that hard, but executing it in a way that the animals are taken care of in the facility is challenging. And it could not be done. It could not be done without the selfless dedication of Jane, of Faithful Friends, of the staff, and so many volunteers who come to support that mission. So I'm just here to say thank you. It's humbling. I have the good fortune of working right down the street, so I will often pass by this building and get that little lump in my throat, knowing that this piece of land makes a tremendous statement about the values of our community. Thank you, each and every one of you, for your contribution to that.
Thank you very much, Matt, for those great words. I'd like to introduce our Executive Director, Jane Parentazzi, who, by the way, was recently named CEO of the Year in the Median Nonprofit category by the Delaware Business Times. Congratulations, Jane. Jane formed Faithful Friends in the year 2000 to address the... Jane formed Faithful Friends in the year 2000 to address the abuses that animals were facing in publicly funded shelters. She's been instrumental in working with state legislators to improve animal welfare laws in the state of Delaware. She, along with her dedicated employees, volunteers, and others, has saved thousands of animals' lives over the years. Here is Jane Parentazzi.
Thank you, Bob. Well, thank you, everyone. I want to thank Matt Meyer for his kind words. I want to thank Bob, as Sharon said, for being our fearless leader and for putting up with a lot of bossy women. Of course, I want to thank you, Sharon and Rick, for your very outstanding, generous gift and for your years of dedication to the board, Sharon, in a leadership role. And a big thank you to all of you who've joined us today to celebrate. We have a beautiful day. Celebrate what we've created together and all the accomplishments we've made for animals over 23 years. And first, I want you to meet Zoe. Little Zoe. She's a senior dog, and she has diabetes, and she's waiting for a home.
And her story is that her owner died and her family member closest to her was going to leave her out to fend for herself and abandon her. And another family member found out, and they scooped her up and brought her here. And so she's now really desperately waiting for a home. And I want to tell her story because it reminds me of the reason why we're here. The reason why we started was to help the dogs and cats in publicly funded shelters, as Bob mentioned. 23 years ago was when I started my fight for animals who were being harmed. Our story began when I visited a publicly funded shelter for the first time. A little dog like Zoe caught my ear on the first visit. The dogs and cats had no names, no bedding, no toys in the publicly funded shelter. I was walking around, the animals were desperate. The dogs were howling, crying, pawing, even the cats were pawing. Just really a lot of chaos of emotion from the animals. And this little dog, similar to Zoe, who I ended up naming Peanut, caught my attention because he was crying and it sounded like a baby. He was whimpering and shaking in his cage, and I noticed that the back of his skin was raw. When I asked the worker about number 134, she said, "You don't want him, honey. It will cost you thousands of dollars to fix his skin disease." I went home very distraught, sent somebody back in when his stray hold was up to adopt him, took him to the vet, and $150 later had him neutered and his skin treated for nothing more than a flea allergy. When I tried to get answers from the shelter on what was going on, there were no answers. It was a closed system. I had to solicit help, and since I worked in child welfare for years, I had relationships with the legislators and the media. And so Robin Brown, who's here today, I want to recognize. She was a News Journal reporter, and where's Robin? And she loves animals. There she is. And she was willing to follow the stories, promote the issues in the paper, and push the policy reforms and help us get grassroots movement going. And I met with several legislators to find someone to help us tackle the issues with the legislation. And former Senator Patty Blevins was willing to take the lead. She was also knowledgeable about child welfare. So she understood what we were trying to do. And what we learned was that the state was mass killing 25 to 30,000 pets a year in the publicly funded shelters, and that there was a 90% kill rate. So our first goal as an organization was to end the mass killing and mistreatment of pets in the publicly funded shelters. And we didn't have the funds early on. We were so new to take in all the animals. So we decided we needed to focus on, actually the most important change was to make legislative policy reforms to reform the entire state and to essentially create an animal protection system that would model a child welfare system. At the same time, we built up our no-kill shelter services and support services for pet caretakers. By 2015, the state had an 88% save rate, and by 2016, a 90% save rate, and Delaware became the first no-kill state in the country. And our work to reform the state in reality saved hundreds of thousands of animals from sure death. And thanks to your support today, our organization serves 15,000 pets and 24,000 people through a full range of services that mirror child welfare. Today, we share the success with each of you, our donors, you, our partners, you, our dedicated employees and volunteers. And one thing I want to share is that over the 23 years, I learned that whether we are saving dogs or cats, rabbits, guinea pigs, your occasional chicken, pig, or reptile, they all are sentient beings. They all have feelings. They all have deep relationships with each other, and they will have relationships with us if they can trust us. They all value their lives as much as we do, and I believe they all deserve protection and care. And leaders in human rights have inspired me, and I think that this one will inspire you. Abraham Lincoln, I feel, had it right when he said, "I am for animal rights as well as human rights, for that is the way of a whole human being." And if you didn't know this about him, he had rescued stray cats that he loved, Tabby and Dixie. And he was scolded by his wife for feeding Tabby at the White House dinner table. And he said, if the gold fork was good enough for former President Buchanan, it's good enough for our cat Tabby. When you go inside today, you're going to look on the left wall in the reception area. We have a major donor wall. We also have dedications throughout the building on rooms and in spaces, and they all reflect a theme we've carried with us since the beginning. We need to extend our circle of compassion to animals. And Albert Schweitzer has been the individual we've quoted since the beginning. Until we extend our circle of compassion to animals, we will not find peace. In ways small and large, we can extend our circle of compassion to animals, certainly by supporting the work we do here, also through your daily choices, and by having the courage to create real change, continued change for animals, as we have over 23 years. Thanks to the generosity and commitment of those who contributed to the Building Compassion campaign, we are here celebrating this new milestone for our organization. We have this beautiful new home, and the facility will enable us to continue to demonstrate and teach compassion for animals. Moving in the new facility tells the community two things. One, we are here to stay. Two, we have passionate supporters, you, who give us a firm foundation from which to grow. Each one of you, and together we collectively are leaving a legacy, enabling us to continue to expand the circle of compassion for animals. I have three special guests that I want to introduce you to, each who brought with them a special animal that you'll get to meet. I'd like to start first with Donna and Michael Bays and their foster kitty, Mantis. We're going to see if he will spend some time out here with us. If not, we'll put him back in a carrier. They are Count County residents, and they are longtime supporters of our organization. They've been involved with cat rescue for 16 years and have volunteered as foster parents, and they're the best humane cat trappers, I believe, in the state. I'd like you to meet Donna and Michael Bays and Kitty Mantis. And I guess Michael's going to get the kitty.
It is a true pleasure to be here today in the dedication of this state-of-the-art building, who is going to service the needs of animals throughout the state of Delaware. As Jane said, I have been involved with animal rescue for 16 years. I've had a relationship with Faithful Friends for 16 years through a foster program, their adoption program, their barn cat program. Whatever it was, Faithful Friends was always there to help me to be an effective trapper and to help in aiding the animals throughout the state. Regardless of age, regardless of their medical needs, regardless of disability, it was always an open door policy here at Faithful Friends. Doing what we do, we often daily get phone calls, people seeking assistance, either needing their animals spayed and neutered or seeking medical care for an injured animal or in placement due to issues of abandoned animals. Such a call came this past winter from a gentleman from the Dover area, and he said that he was living in his car with a 12-year-old cat that he had gotten from his mother, who had passed from cancer. He made a commitment to her that he was going to see to Annabelle. And he then fell on hard times and unfortunately was living in the car in the cold, extreme temperatures with Annabelle. And he had reached out to many shelters, and just like all shelters, they're always full. And so he somehow got my number, called, and I said, give me an opportunity. He said, he says, there are days where I may not eat. He said, if it's one thing I do is make sure that Annabelle is fed. So I pick up the phone and I call the cat department at Faithful Friends, and within 24 hours, Annabelle was here at Faithful Friends. She is now an alumni of Faithful Friends because she was adopted into an indoor loving home. So we're very proud and pleased. And he was able to meet that commitment to his mother, that he would never abandon that cat on the streets. She was given a second chance, just like many others that enter the program at Faithful Friends, such as our little girl here, Mantis. Mantis came to Faithful Friends with her siblings about 3 months ago. When she came, she was diagnosed with a disease called FIP, which means feline infectious peritonitis. And up to 4 years ago, it was not treatable. However, through studies through UC Davis and Dr. Patterson in California, a drug was developed and treatment was available. And through personal experience with one of my own cats having FIP, who is now 4 years later still alive, that I went to Jane and I said, you know, there really is something to this medication. Jane always having an open mind. She then went to the her medical staff. They had conversation, and you know, the invitation was that if they diagnosed the kitties with FIP, that then my husband and I would take and treat them. It's actually an 84-day treatment, and then they go into 84 days of observation. So Jane was open to that, and so this is Mantis, and she is now about 5-6 months old, and she just finished her treatment of 84 days on Saturday. Now she goes into her observation phase. She is cat number 16 that we have treated for FIP. Unfortunately, we did have one other, but he also had leukemia, so he had a double whammy, and he just could not fight the FIP. So this is baby Mantis, and Mantis does have an official doctor, but there are so many others out there that are waiting for their forever home. That today, please, as you tour the building, please keep an open mind, open heart, pick up an application, and please adopt. And in the words of Bob Barker, please spay and neuter your animals.
Thank you, Donna and Michael. Our next special guest is Anna Maria Bueller and her husband, Bob Gorman, and their long-term foster dog, Skippy, and I think they brought another foster dog. Do you want to come up? Skippy was brought to us by a postal worker who found Skippy on the side of the road, thought he was dead. He was paralyzed. Multiple vets said he would never walk again. He also was found to have an enlarged heart and to be partially blind. A vet tech took him home and did water therapy and massaged his legs. But with all the medical issues, we knew we'd have to find a hospice foster home. We didn't think he'd have very long to live. That was probably 4 years ago. Yes, Anna Maria and Bob came forward to be a hospice foster home, and they still have him today, and they can tell you about his progress, and you can meet him. And I thank both of you for your wonderful work.
My husband, Dr. Bob Gorman, and myself have been fosters for Faithful Friends since April of 2014. While Bob was working in Dublin for 3 weeks, he happened to come upon a post of Faithful Friends for a Pomeranian named Buddy, and he urged me to apply. When Bob returned home, Buddy was part of our family. Buddy had some medical issues and became a permanent foster. We administered any meds, IVs, or anything he needed while in our care. Buddy passed away in March of 2018. In June of 2015, I saw a post for Scrappy and Sparky who needed to stay together, so we went to meet them, and within minutes, Janine had them packed up and ready to come home with us. Scrappy had some medical issues and became another permanent foster. He passed away from cancer in November 2018. Faithful Friends let us continue to foster Sparky since he was bonded with us and our dogs. Sparky became blind in February of 2022 and was diagnosed with liver cancer in May of 2022. Sparky's blindness hasn't affected him as he knows his way around the house and especially where the doggy steps to the sofa are in the living room and in the bedroom to our bed. He exhibits no signs or symptoms of liver cancer. Sparky is still his happy-go-lucky self. This is Sparky here. We also did a temporary foster a few weeks in 2017 with Whitey, now known as Skipper. Skipper was adopted by an amazing couple and lives his best life ever. We keep in touch with his family, and he has stayed at our house a few times when his family went on vacation. In September of 2019, while picking up meds for Sparky at Faithful Friends, I mentioned to Ashley that I saw their post about Skippy and the Healing Touch Fund and how we were so happy that he was in a foster home. As it turned out, Ashley and Nicole had taken him home when he was found and nursed him away from death's door by constantly holding him and massaging his back and legs, and having him swim in a pool. The next day, I received a call from Nicole asking if we'd like to be Skippy's fosters, as we previously had experienced nursing a paralyzed Pomeranian back to health. Of course, we said yes, and Bob worked with him using a cold laser therapy device we purchased after seeing how it helped our earlier paralyzed Pomeranian. Bob treated him every evening after work. Skippy also goes by the name Stanley. Today, Skippy runs around like crazy in our yard and up and down the doggy ramp that Bob built for our other dog. He still has a limp and tilts his head to see objects and walks in circles a lot, so he's now called our hospice flunky. Skippy's only bad habit is his constant barking at Bob whenever Bob moves around the house. He just wants to be held constantly. When Bob picks him up, he is quiet and content. Skippy plays every day with our other 4 Pomeranians. Skippy was supposed to be the guest of honor at the 20th anniversary of Faithful Friends, but COVID put a damper on that, so we did a virtual interview with Faithful Friends. Skippy loves his tuxedo. Fortunately, I am a full-time stay-at-home doggy mom, so our dogs are never left alone for long periods of time. We feel so blessed to be fosters for Faithful Friends. This is an amazing organization for the animals. Anytime I stop in for visits, for checkups, meds, etc., I'm always greeted with smiles, and when I have any of the dogs with me, the staff always fusses over them. I cannot thank Ashley, Nicole, and Janine enough for their patience with me whenever I may need to contact them, and for giving the dogs whatever attention and care they need. Thank you to Jane and everyone at Faithful Friends for your love, care, and compassion of all the animals.
Detective Rick Jones, who evaluated him and thought he would be a great working dog. Jack now has an important job protecting our community, and he didn't lose his life like he could have if he continued to go downhill in the shelter. I'd like to introduce Honorable Detective Rick Jones and Jack. And all these dogs are friendly, so afterwards you can pet them and talk to their fosters or adopters.
Good morning, everyone. I'm honored to be here for the opening of a facility I know will help endless animals find homes. I'm a detective and canine handler with the Trainer Borough Police Department right over the border in PA. And I'm also a canine Jack's handler. It's an amazing story of dedication by Taylor and Jack, who are staff members here, and good luck that brought our police department and Faithful Friends together. I was forwarded a TikTok video of Jack being returned to the shelter for the 3rd time and asking if I could help. I saw a stressed out looking pup with amazing ears being driven back to the facility, and later learned that he had spent the first years of his life without a true home and had it pretty rough. I reached out and offered to test him for detection work, expecting a no, but received an immediate and enthusiastic yes. Jack tested off the charts, and so began our journey. This was new territory and a challenge, and we all realized that in order to make this happen, we would have to do the work. This is where 3 unlikely organizations An animal rescue, a police department, and Sector K-9 teamed up and ultimately won. The decision was made after Faithful Friends raised the needed funds, and I received the fastest yes from my chief that me and Jack would go back to school together with Sector K-9, and I would become a certified police detection dog trainer, and Jack would become a certified police firearms detection canine. And then he would be donated to a new handler. On September 21st, 2021, Zach and Taylor dropped Jack off at our police station, and off we went for this 5-month undertaking. Jack was a handful at first, earning him the name Gremlin Jack. He taught me the most important lesson of my canine career: patience. We overcame several hurdles and at times had to be a bit creative by making our own training orders due to supply issues, and once me and Jack got on the same page, Jack became a fully certified police service detection canine, and I earned my trainer certification. I was so proud of him. Jack and I were pretty attached by then, so to absolutely no one's surprise, I kept him. So now I had 2. And he joined my other rescue, Canine Ace, and they were now the first and second rescue police canines on the street in PA history. They work and ride with me every day. Labels, stereotypes, and misinformation are never acceptable and can be fatal for dogs. Faithful Friends took a huge step in fighting for these awesome pups by forming these unlikely partnerships and showing how capable a rescue can be instead of just calling. Jack has been deployed numerous times to sweep schools, after-school threat, playgrounds, and high gun crime areas, and he has located 9 illegal firearms during traffic stops. I hope this is just the beginning of Rescue Police Canines, and would like to thank this organization for helping paving the way. Thank you very much.